right, guys, our next segment, presented by Clarkson Eyecare and Nationwide Vision, is going to be an inspirational one. This dynamic woman hails right here from Phoenix, Arizona. She's a former sideline reporter and co-host of College GameDay and is the current host of Sunday NFL Countdown on ESPN. She is married to former Minnesota Vikings quarterback Christian Ponder, and they have 3 adorable kids. Somehow she has done all of this while continuing to work and share her family and faith with everyone. Please give a round of applause to Samantha Ponder.
Sorry, I got kind of lost out there.
Hello, I'm so glad you came.
Yes, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for joining us. I am so glad you're here because you're a hometown girl.
I am. I'm a Phoenix girl.
I feel like, when did you graduate? Okay, well, I'm gonna tell our age.
I was like, wait a second. 2004 Central High School.
Central High School.
Any love for Phoenix here?
Yes, I ran there many years around that track.
Wait, where did you go? Did you go to Xavier?
Chandler High School.
Oh, okay.
But they always had that huge invitational every year, and I was there.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, so let's talk about when you were, I want to back up. I remember watching you on College GameDay. That was like when you were just killing it. You were on there with all these men, and you not only were on there knowing your stuff, but like you just bared everything to the world.
Probably too much.
No,
yes.
probably. But in a good way, and it was so relatable to so many women. And so talk about that journey, being there with all of these men and finding your place.
Yeah, well, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. When I was asked if I would be on College GameDay, I grew up here. My dad was a coach. We were always out and about. We didn't even have cable, so I had never seen College GameDay the first time I was on it. And I'll never forget, we were in Dallas for my first show, and they have this golf cart that takes you out, and I'm sitting with, Kirk Herbstreit and Lee Corso and all these guys, and I'm, basically a baby. I was like 24. And I look out there, and there's this crowd of people, like all these frat boys, and I'm like, what have I got myself into? And I think I just took the approach, instead of being intimidated by all that, like, just have fun with it. I mean, there's so much stuff I learned really early on in my career. You could let yourself be scared and feel like everything's too big and I'm not prepared for this. Or you could think everybody else is insecure just like me. Everybody else is a little bit nervous just like me, and embrace that. And I've found that makes it a lot more fun.
That is true. I found going into corporate America again, timid and just nervous to do anything. And then I get in there, I'm like, oh, y'all don't know what y'all doing either.
Exactly.
That
is the big secret.
Okay, so we are good, right?
For sure. That helps to take that approach. And honestly, it makes it more enjoyable when you realize we're all human. Like, even the people that look really impressive and put together, I think I've learned that in the NFL world too. You get intimidated by these people. I'll tell a quick story. Nick Saban, like the king of college football, I was always scared anytime I had to interview him. And one time he came on the College GameDay bus, and he was going to go out for the big, game day interview. And I'm sitting there with him like, oh, what am I going to talk to this guy about? And he goes, Sam, come here. Miss Terry, his wife, just sent me a text, and she was wondering if you would fix my hair. So there I am, like, patting Nick Saban's head. Yeah. I'm like, oh, he's just a guy like everybody else. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so you credit your parents for fostering your love for sports. How do you see them showing up in you now that you have like your own little athletes?
Yeah, well, it's funny how like you don't know what's normal when you're growing up, because all you know is what's in your family. So my dad's run a inner city basketball program in Phoenix for the last 40 years, and then became, this sounds very confusing, but became the head coach of the South Sudan national basketball team and then the Palestinian national basketball team. So been all over the world, and like I just thought that was normal. I thought it was normal to have like 100 guys at your house all the time, and it was just madness always. But to me, that environment of sports, I mean, we all played 3 sports growing up. I got 2 younger brothers and an older sister, and it was how we connected. And that's why I wanted to stay in sports. I never really had that much of an interest in TV and that side of it. I've had to learn all that on the fly. But like, for me, it was about being connected to that part of my identity. Like, that's how I connected with people. The gals were up here earlier talking about basketball, like making your closest friends. All my closest relationships came through sports. So that's what I want from my kids. Like, I don't care if they're actually good at any of this stuff. Like, that's nice. But
I mean, you care.
Maybe a little bit. But honestly, it's mostly because I want them to learn those lessons and connect with all sorts of people. Like, It's so rare to find. You look in an NFL locker room, those guys would not be together in any other circumstances. Like it really is like a special place where different kinds of people from different backgrounds can come and connect and have that one thing that draws them all together.
Yeah. I think about you, I don't know if you guys follow Sam on social media, but she was one of the first ladies that I remember not only working hard, but in showing that and showing her family, but like you would take Scout with you to work. And imagine that, traveling with her, like you showed all of that. And that was very inspirational because you rarely saw that. Talk about why you decided to do that, as well as how was the environment? How did were they welcoming or?
Yeah, I don't necessarily recommend it, but I will say I learned so much. I mean, it was my second year on game day and I already felt like way in over my head. And my husband was playing for the Vikings at the time and I found out I was pregnant. It was like, surprise, now what? And so I kind of kept it a secret for a while because I didn't know what that meant for my career. Like I hadn't seen anybody do this. And I'm sure there was somebody, I'm not saying I was some trailblazer, but like I hadn't seen it in my world where there was a mom. There's a lot of like single women doing the job I was doing. And I remember talking to my husband, like, the schedule of NFL guys, like during the season, he was gone.
Yeah.
So if I had left her at home, she was just going to be there with a nanny. And I knew I didn't want to do that. And so I was like, well, kid, you're coming with me. And so before she was one, she was on over 100 flights. And you figure it out. It was a hot mess. And I'm like changing this kid on the top of toilet seats in the airplane bathrooms. Like it was disgusting. It was all the things. But I will say what I learned from that experience is one, like you can do hard stuff that you think maybe you can't. Like you find a way. And the other thing is the guys that I worked with, it actually made people relate to me more. I had like Kirk Herbstreit during commercial breaks would be holding my baby as she's like spitting up on stuff. Like people love to see reminders of your humanity.
Yes,
It gave them an opportunity. I was always someone who was like, I don't need any help. I didn't want that. They wanted to help, they wanted to connect in that way. And it actually brought our whole crew a lot closer. And she's a great traveler now. So she's 8, but now just wants to fly all over the place because that's kind of how she grew up. So it was a tough thing. When I got pregnant with my second right after, I was like, nope, not doing that anymore. But it was some special memories we made.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting, the thought process, the things that go through our head when we are showing up in our careers, because you think you have to be a certain way or things have to be just, tied in a nice bow. But the truth of the matter is, it is important for them to see you as a human. Same with the athletes. Like there's a whole person behind this career. And I'm a mom, I'm multitasking and things of that nature. So I'm glad that you shared that. Okay, so how do you continue to push the envelope for other young women and girls who are looking up to you, right? Because lots of women love sports and want to be in front of the camera, behind the camera, things like that.
Yeah, I love being in this type of environment with women in the sports world. Because for me, I think for a lot of us, people would be like, so how'd you get into sports? I'm like, I didn't know any different. Like our generation was the girl power, like girls were playing sports all the time. And obviously we have our parents' generation to thank for opening those doors. Because I know even for my mom, like she just didn't have the opportunities to play like I did. But when it comes to women in sports and TV, where I think, I kind of got pushed into sideline reporting, which was weird because I grew up with a dad who would mute sideline reporters. So I had like a whole complex about that. But I kind of got pushed into that job because it was like, you're young and female, like go be the sideline person. And it was great. And it was a great experience. But what I really hope for women coming up is that they'll realize that the real decision making and the real power is the executives behind all this stuff, the producers behind it. I know we all have a little vanity in us, so it's like, oh, I want to be the TV person, but the real power are the people who are putting those people in those positions, and that's where we don't have a lot of women. I was actually hired by a woman at ESPN who gave me my first shot back at Longhorn Network and then hired me to take Chris Berman's job on Sunday Countdown. She's it. Like she is and she has been such a champion for me.
Mm-hmm. One thing I loved about you is on social media, she's very real. And social media, we all know, can sometimes not look real. And you did such a good job just like showing your faith and your beliefs and like really just putting yourself out there in a way that was very genuine and people could relate to. Why was that so important to you?
Oh man, I've had such a struggle with social media. I think for a lot of us who like didn't grow up with this stuff, there's no roadmap. Like, I don't know how to do it. You know, like there's no one telling me how to do this thing. And honestly, it brought so much anxiety trying to figure out like what's the right way. And I realized, you know what? I'd rather just mess it up being me and kind of tell people like what I'm really working through. I mean, I tell people all the time that, you know, whenever you get in any position where you have a platform, people are like, you know, give your thoughts on this, There's some things that I'm like, or people that ask for marriage advice. I'm like, well, we're struggling. Why are you asking me? Like, I'm not trying to put out this picture of like, this is all so easy and I've got it all figured out. And even with the social media stuff in terms of like the actual pictures, I had to kind of check myself because early on, you know, you're like putting filters on all these pictures and stuff, and my kids are looking at it. I was scrolling through and they're like, who's that chick? Like, I'm like, oh, you know, like I had to remind myself that like this actually matters more than we think. There are women out there comparing their I just woke up face to your like, I don't have any pores face. I'm like, that is not a face. That's not anybody's face. We got to stop doing that. And it's helped me a lot to realize this is the example my daughters are going to have. Of like, it's a weird way of saying it, but like your social media in some ways is like your legacy. Like it's what's going to be left behind. And when my daughter's 13 and questioning everything and thinking she's not good enough like we all do, I don't want her looking at this fake example of what womanhood looks like. Like it's okay to age a little bit. It doesn't mean like, you know, I'm going to take a picture of every time I look terrible. Like I'm not trying to overdo it, but I do think a certain level of authenticity is the responsibility of anybody who has a platform.
Absolutely.
That's really good.
So we asked a reflection question to our guests throughout the season, but think back to when you were 21, 22.
Oh gosh.
Are you doing what you thought you would be doing?
Oh my gosh, this is so far beyond. Guys, my big dream growing up here, the reason I got interested in sports broadcasting is I grew up watching NBA Inside Stuff on ABC. It was with Ahmad Rashad and Summer Sanders. And I thought what Ahmad Rashad did was like the coolest thing ever. He like, got to know these athletes personally, and it wasn't all about the exo stuff. It was like learning about their families. And but my big dream after watching that was I just wanted to do like radio in Phoenix about the Phoenix Suns or the Cardinals. And we were terrible, but I was a super fan. So all this stuff was so far beyond anything that I had dreamt for myself. We didn't know anybody on TV or have any connections. Like we were just a regular family. And so that's why sometimes I still pinch myself like this is just, God's been so good to me, and not because I've done this thing right. I mean, I've messed up a million times, but still just like blessing after blessing. And I think in some ways it's to remind me that like, that's no big deal to him. Like he can put one person up, another person down. Like you can get these amazing experiences. They can all be gone like that. And just to try and remember for me to be grateful, because that 21-year-old girl that was out there just hustling, trying to find a way, didn't necessarily deserve this, but I'm so grateful that I've gotten to experience it all.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a tough question for you.
Uh-oh.
We all want to know, in your opinion, who do you think will win the Super Bowl tomorrow? No pressure.
I'm like looking to see how much green and how much red, how many people I'm going to upset. I get scared to upset Philly fans because I've been there. I'm going with the Chiefs. And I know everyone's taking the Eagles. I know they're like across the board, probably the better team. But the Patrick Mahomes effect, I think it's going to be really close. But I think at the end of the game, Andy Reid's going to scheme up some magic and the Chiefs end up winning.
Ring around the room.
So sorry. But I love the Eagles. I'm so sorry.
I don't know how you're going to make it happen.
I had to ask y'all. I had to ask.
Oh, no.
Okay, so last question. You have experienced some amazing things. What's one thing that you wish you had have enjoyed more?
I love that you said that, because that's like my number one message. I was talking to some girls yesterday at Radio Row that were, trying to get into the industry and asking advice. And I think back at my like 19-year-old self who was just getting coffee for people and, you know, grinding, like sleeping in my car for a while and not doing anything that felt important. I was in such a rush to get to the next thing. Like I just wanted to hurry up that season. And I look back and I'm like, man, I wish I would have just slowed down and enjoyed. Those are some of the sweetest memories of just like with my fellow interns, and none of us had any money and none of us like knew anybody important. There were no connections. We weren't getting into any of these kind of parties here, like none of that. We were just hanging out. And I look back and they were such sweet memories that I've now learned, like even now that we're done, my husband's done playing, I wish in that season I would have been all there in that. I was already thinking like, what's going to happen when this is over and where are we going to live next? And you know, the grind of all that, like never just being present and like being all there in whatever season of life I was in, whether it was with little babies at home or any of that. I've really struggled with that throughout my life, like just always looking ahead to the next thing and looking back. I wish I would have just kind of enjoyed being a scrub for a while and living that life, because that was a special time.
That's good.
I know I say all the time, the worst thing I ever said is I can't wait to grow up.
Oh, I know. It's a trap.
I don't know.
I say it all the time too,
That was it. All right, Samantha, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Anything for you guys. Thanks.